And the Oscar goes to Clint Eastwood for Million Dollar Baby.
I drive a Typhoon, a GMC Typhoon. It's actually a turboed V6. It's fast.
He barely graduated high school. He dug ditches and pumped gas for cash. He wasn't supposed to make it in Hollywood. He wasn't even supposed to audition. But somehow, this quiet outsider became one of the richest and most powerful men in the entire industry. Clint Eastwood isn't just a cowboy icon. He's a multi-millionaire mogul with a secret empire. $375 million in luxury properties, rare cars, a private golf course, and a production company that made him more money than acting ever could. He's directed Oscar-winning masterpieces, lived through scandal after scandal, and built a legacy that spans decades, without ever playing by Hollywood's rules. But how did a kid from a working-class family rise to control so much power while barely speaking a word? The truth behind Clint Eastwood's fortune, fame, and carefully hidden controversies might just change the way you see him forever. Clint Eastwood wasn't born into privilege. Far from it. He entered the world during the Great Depression, May 31st, 1930, in San Francisco, California. His father bounced between jobs as a steelworker and migrant laborer, dragging the family from town to town. Clint grew up in the back seat of a car, more than a stable home. One month, they were in Oregon, the next, down in Los Angeles. Nothing was consistent, except the struggle. In school, Clint wasn't remarkable. Teachers called him lazy. He barely graduated. But there was one thing no one could ignore: his height and quiet confidence. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had a strange, magnetic presence. That helped him get odd jobs, as a lifeguard, forest firefighter, even a lumberjack. Anything to bring in money. But fate took its shot after he was drafted into the Army. A chance encounter at Universal Studios would soon flip everything. He had no formal training, no Hollywood connections, but all it took was one look, and Clint Eastwood was in. He didn't walk into Hollywood, he slipped in through the side door. After his Army service, Clint Eastwood landed a job as a contract player at Universal Studios. Not because of acting skill, but because someone liked his look. He was stiff, awkward, and almost got fired for his wooden delivery. But instead of quitting, he watched, studied, waited. Then, in 1959, something clicked. He landed a role on the TV show Rawhide, and suddenly, Eastwood wasn't just another extra. He was somebody. The show ran for 8 seasons, making him a household name. But TV wasn't enough. Clint had his sights on something bigger. Enter Sergio Leone, the Italian director who reinvented the Western genre. Together, they created a cinematic revolution, a fistful of dollars, for a few dollars more. And the good, the bad, and the ugly made Eastwood a global icon, the ultimate silent, steel-eyed cowboy. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. The world listened anyway. And with millions pouring in, Clint didn't just spend, he built. Behind that squint and deadpan stare was a businessman, sharp, calculating, and way ahead of his time. While other actors burned their paychecks on cars and cocaine, Clint Eastwood started investing. He launched his own production company, Malpaso Productions, giving him full control over the movies he starred in, directed, and profited from. He wasn't just cashing a paycheck, he was writing the checks. By the early 90s, he had made over $200 million from acting alone. But the real money came from the back end. Ownership, rights, and royalties. Unforgiven, Million Dollar Baby, American Sniper. Oscar-winning hits that Eastwood didn't just act in, he owned them. And while studios begged him for more, Clint used the profits to expand, buying properties, developing land, and quietly building one of the most surprising empires in Hollywood history. But his biggest assets weren't in the studio. They were hidden in the hills, behind locked gates, and guarded by silence. You won't see Clint Eastwood flexing on Instagram, but behind closed doors, the man lives like Hollywood royalty, on stealth mode. He owns a $25 million estate in Pebble Beach, perched on one of California's most luxurious coastlines. Hidden behind hedges and iron gates, the mansion includes a private cinema, office, sprawling gardens, and a pool with ocean views. It's a place designed not to be found. Then there's his $33 million compound in Bel Air, where 7 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms spill out into a perfectly manicured estate. Outdoor lounge areas, a full wine cellar, and a private gym. The kind of home where celebrities host parties you'll never hear about. In Idaho, he owns a secluded Sunny Valley retreat, complete with horse trails, meadows, and a 2,000-square-foot guest house. It's built like a luxury bunker for someone who wants silence, not attention. And then there's Tahama, California, a fortress in the hills with its own private 18-hole golf course. That's right, Clint Eastwood built a golf course just for himself, because when you're worth hundreds of millions, public tee times don't exist. He even owns a boutique luxury hotel, the Mission Ranch in Carmel. Once a rundown sheep farm, Eastwood bought it, restored it, and turned it into a rustic retreat overlooking the sea. It's not just a business. It's a legacy piece, stamped with his quiet signature. And then there are the cars, vintage classics like the 1932 Ford Roadster, the iconic 1972 Gran Torino, and a 1955 Cadillac Eldorado, each one a museum-worthy time capsule. Add in a Tesla, a Bentley Continental GT, and an Aston Martin DB9, and Eastwood's garage looks more like a billionaire's showroom. But for someone who owns all that, Clint Eastwood never acts like it. Because the man behind the empire doesn't live loud. He lives deliberately. Clint Eastwood may be a Hollywood titan, but he spends most of his time like a small-town farmer. He lives quietly in Carmel by the Sea, a coastal village where he shops at local stores, walks his dog, and chats with neighbors like any retired grandpa. No security details, no entourage, just a ball cap, flannel shirt, and a cup of black coffee. He plays jazz piano, cooks his own meals, mostly Italian recipes with organic ingredients, and spends hours tending to his garden. It feels peaceful, almost too peaceful. But this quiet lifestyle isn't just personal preference. It's strategy. Eastwood has always stayed just far enough from the spotlight to keep people guessing. He's not anti-Hollywood. He's just never needed it. He built his own machine, owns his own studios, and calls his own shots. And in a world obsessed with fame, that kind of power is far more dangerous. But if you think his personal life is quiet, wait till you see the chaos that's followed him behind the scenes. Clint Eastwood didn't just break box office records, he broke hearts. A lot of them. Officially, he's the father of 8 children by 6 different women, though some sources claim the real number might be higher. His relationships often overlapped, blurred, and unraveled in the public eye. And while Clint rarely spoke about his personal life, the headlines did it for him. One of his most notorious relationships was with actress Sandra Locke, who co-starred in several of his films. Their romance ended with a brutal court battle. Locke accused Eastwood of manipulation and sabotage, both professionally and personally. The lawsuit ended quietly, but the damage stuck. Then there was Jaslyn Reeves, the mother of 2 of his children, including actor Scott Eastwood. Clint reportedly maintained the relationship while still married to his first wife, Maggie Johnson. The secrecy, once it unraveled, triggered tabloid storms. In 1996, he married Dina Ruiz, a news anchor 35 years his junior. For a time, it looked like he'd finally settled down, but the marriage collapsed in 2014, after nearly 20 years, ending with another public divorce. Some of Clint's children have spoken out about feeling emotionally distant from their father. Others have followed in his footsteps and entered the industry, like Scott, hoping to earn his legacy on their own terms. Despite the romantic entanglements and broken ties, Eastwood never apologized or explained. He didn't deny the chaos. He just moved forward, stone-faced, as always. But it wasn't just his personal life that stirred headlines. His politics lit an even bigger fire. Clint Eastwood doesn't fit neatly into any box. He's a cowboy on screen, but off screen, he's even harder to pin down. In 1986, while still acting and directing, Eastwood ran for mayor of Carmel by the Sea and won. No political background, no party machine, just a promise to make city permits easier for local. He did it for one reason. He hated the red tape. That's how Clint operates. Cut through the nonsense, get results. But things got messy when he stepped onto the national stage. At the 2012 Republican National Convention, Eastwood delivered an unscripted, controversial speech where he spoke to an empty chair, pretending President Obama was sitting in it. What was supposed to be satire became a viral fiasco. Critics called it rambling, bizarre, even embarrassing. But Eastwood didn't flinch. He shrugged, smiled, and moved on. He's never publicly aligned with a specific political party. He's pro-environment, anti-censorship, fiscally conservative, but emotionally unpredictable. In short, he doesn't care what people think. And that's exactly why people do care what he thinks. Eastwood's political presence added a new dimension to his brand. He wasn't just a movie star, he was a cultural force, capable of swaying headlines, voters, and public opinion with a single quote. But no amount of money or influence could shield him from scandal. And some of them hit hard. For decades, Clint Eastwood's image was bulletproof, stoic, respected, untouchable. But behind that stone-cold stare were stories Hollywood couldn't ignore. The most persistent shadow? His reputation with women. For years, tabloids covered his tangled web of relationships. Some public, some kept secret for decades. Rumors of infidelity followed him through each marriage. The lawsuits added fuel. The Sandra Locke case was particularly explosive. Allegations of betrayal, professional sabotage, and psychological manipulation left a permanent mark, even if the legal battle ended quietly. But Clint didn't just stir drama in relationships, he stirred it in the director's chair too. On set, he's been described as cold, even uncommunicative. Some actors said he gave no direction, just one take and move on. Others called it genius, efficient, focused, pure. Either way, the message was clear. Clint ran his sets his way, and not everyone liked it. Then came the political backlash. His 2012 empty chair speech became a lightning rod. To supporters, it was bold. To critics, it was a bizarre rant. Either way, it sparked nationwide debate and polarized audiences who had once loved him unconditionally. Even his films haven't escaped controversy. Take Gran Torino, a box office hit, but also criticized for its blunt racial dialogue and portrayal of ethnic stereotypes. Some called it raw and necessary. Others called it dangerous and outdated. But in typical Eastwood fashion, he never defended it, never explained. He let the film speak for itself. In Hollywood, silence is rare. But for Clint Eastwood, it's his loudest weapon. And now, after all the awards, all the chaos, and all the silence, he's living life on his own terms at 94. At 94 years old, Clint Eastwood isn't chasing roles. He's chasing meaning. These days, you won't find him on red carpets or reality shows. He spends most of his time in Rancho Mirage, a quiet desert escape far from flashing cameras. He walks. He plays golf. He composes jazz at his grand piano. Sometimes, he still picks up the camera, not because he needs the money, but because he has something to say. In recent years, he's directed films like The Mule and Richard Jewell. Gritty, thoughtful stories that feel less like movies and more like reflections from a man looking back at life's rough edges. And through it all, one thing has stayed constant: control. Clint Eastwood doesn't take orders. He gives them. And in a town built on hype, that control is rarer than gold. But legacy? That's what he's really working on now. He's quietly mentoring his children, especially Scott Eastwood, who's carving his own path in Hollywood. he's handing over the keys, not just to his career, but to an entire philosophy. Work hard, say little. Let the results speak for themselves. Even now, at nearly a century old, Clint Eastwood still holds weight in the industry. Studios listen, actors respect him, and fans? They still show up. Because Eastwood didn't just make movies. He made people feel something. From dirt roads to movie sets, from controversy to Oscars, from poverty to a $375 million empire, Clint Eastwood's journey isn't just impressive, it's unrepeatable. He's the last of a dying breed, a man who mastered silence, power, and legacy in a world obsessed with noise. And whether you admire him, criticize him, or still don't understand him, Clint Eastwood's story is far from over.